Good morning, everybody. This is Jen Cords for this week's episode of Rev Up. Nor is not going to be joining us today because he's actually with a client in New York. So today we're just going to jump right into our topic, which is lead routing, its importance, and the responsiveness that everybody should have when it comes to your inbound funnel. So why is lead routing so important? We've found through our research about 40% of, or less than 40% of sales professionals ever actually either get the chance to follow up with a lead or are notified about a lead and the interest that the person has. And all of that actually comes back to lead routing. And so at its core, lead routing is just the assignment of those leads and that interest as it comes in. So as an organization, defining what that means and how a name more or less is processed through the system is really critical to make sure that your inbound marketing funnel is actually handed over to sales and then can translate into opportunities. So as an organization grows, very early on, most organizations are going to have very simple routing. Name comes in, it's qualified, it's downloaded some asset or requested a demo, then immediately gets handed over to a small sales team. A lot of times, most companies start with a round robin type structure. Other times, they will actually just assign it to a person. All leads that come from the United States go to X person. All leads that go to EMEA go to this other person. So those are very basic lead routing structures. And as organizations evolve and products evolve and the key behaviors that somebody may do on a website change, the routing structure and the rules that govern that need to be modified as well. So staying at a very high level, there's lots of tools that can do lead routing. Most tools that operations team leverage for routing are your marketing automation tools. Sometimes you'll see small organizations also leveraging their CRM system because that's their record of truth. And that's the core system that they use to do all business functions. And so making sure that the routing behavior is as close to your source of truth as possible is really important. So if a team is leveraging a marketing automation system to do their lead routing, you need to make sure that there's a seamless integration. In previous conversations we've had here on RevUp is around making sure your tech stack is fully integrated. One key element of that is making sure that your leads are actually able to route efficiently. So if you're not having your systems connected, then you're going to create data silos, which we've also talked about before, and those can create road hiccups or road bumps in your routing process and in your funnel. And it disrupts your tracking and your ability to do proper attribution. So at its very core, like most operations things, you need to make sure that your systems are fully integrated and there's a two-way conversation or a two-way integration between the systems and the systems of record. So for our example, we're going to use Marketo and Salesforce. And there is a seamless two-way integration between Marketo and Salesforce. And so if a record exists in one, it'll exist in the other. And so when a lead or a person fills out a form on the website, it'll go through a series of processes in Marketo before it'll get handed over to Salesforce. And in that process, you can have it as complex or as simple as you'd like it to be, but you can also flag certain behaviors. So for example, if you want your contact us form to just automatically go into a queue for sales to follow up with, there's a way to get that done. So let me back up because I've dove really deep on a pretty complex subject at first. And so last week, last week, sorry, we talked about life cycle and data integrity, and we talked about the importance of data quality. And so when you have data within your system, you need to make sure that the key points that you need to know are captured when a person is filling out a form. So going all the way back to your lead capture mechanism, having those fields defined. You need a first name, last name, email address, and if you're doing location-based routing, then you're going to need to know where that person's located. And either the person can give you that information, or you need to have a really solid data enrichment solution, which we also talked about in a previous episode. So assuming that your data capture is locked down and you have all the fields that you need, when that information comes into your marketing automation system, you want to make sure that you have rules related to where that lead needs to go based on what it is. So defining a contact us form follows this set of behavior, or a demo form follows this other set of behavior, and everything else falls into this other bucket. According to a lot of research, the hand raiser type behaviors like contact us or demos should be followed up with within 5 minutes. So if your lead routing system takes longer than 5 minutes, that person's interest is actually decaying, and the chances that the salesperson will be successful will decrease. So that's why this is most critical to the foundation of your marketing and sales tech stack. And so once you've identified the what and then the how, then you need to actually make sure that it's doing what you need it to do. And so you create a set of rules, and they can be as basic or as complex as you'd like them to be. Marketo allows you to create a lot of if-then statements, which is really helpful when you have a set of complex routing rules. They can also trigger additional behaviors to enrich, to send an alert, etc., to the sales organization. And then if we get down to how it gets into Salesforce, you need to make sure that the salesperson is also notified within the sales system so they know a new lead has come in. And so all of that should happen seamlessly in the background. Some additional tools that I've absolutely loved working with over my time as an operations person, specifically related to routing, is actually Lean Data. So Lean Data is a tool that sits on top of Salesforce, so it does not consume additional bandwidth within the Salesforce ecosystem, but it allows you to actually create a workflow that you can visualize on. This is how the record moves through the system. And so you can also, with that type of visualization, you can identify gaps in your routing, and you can see where are people falling out. Maybe I didn't think through an entire process of tiebreakers. And so when a set of data has the exact same identifiers, what's going to determine where it goes before it just falls into sort of kind of a catch-all queue. So Lean Data is a fantastic system for this. Salesforce does have some built-in routing tools. I've found them to be relatively linear, and I haven't seen that they've evolved their routing capabilities, Salesforce natively. You can create workflows and process builders and things like that to make the routing work within Salesforce with no additional tools. But as an organization grows, that'll also become cumbersome to maintain. And so you really want it as seamless as possible and have a solution that'll actually grow with your organization. So backing up again to the tool that's being leveraged, making sure your ops person or people have that workflow documented. If that workflow ever needs to change, the ops people need to be involved in that conversation. A lot of times the ops people, unfortunately, are the last people to find out that a sales rep has a new territory or so-and-so is leaving. And so it's really key to make sure that those changes are communicated broadly across the entire organization, because that impacts the responsiveness your organization has to your leads. So I mentioned before that studies have shown all inbound leads should be followed up with within 5 minutes. And while that's true, it's also really important to make sure that you have internal checks and balances that will allow a seamless experience for that person. So if something does get misrouted, the sales team knows how to handle that and takes care of the customer first or the prospect first, and then figures out on the back end where it really should belong and who really should own it. But at least then the customer has been taken care of, and the potential revenue and opportunity that could be generated from that person has been captured. So a lot of your lead routing also needs to be followed in your life cycle. So a lot of organizations talk about the funnel or a life cycle or sort of a path for the leads to flow through. And a lot of times that's automated based on the behaviors that a person has done. So let me share something really quick. That's not what I wanted. All right. Well, all right, we're having technical difficulties, so I'm not going to share. So if you are part of our NOR forum, I'll share the workflow in the NOR forum for those members. If you're not a member of our NOR forum, please go to norgroup.com/forum and join. You can join the conversation there about RevOps, about thought leadership. It's our own community of like-minded individuals that come together and share knowledge and help collectively problem solve and share insights of what they're experiencing in the business world. So that's our NOR forum. So please take a moment to join that. And the document that I was wanting to share with you all right now, I will drop that as a link in there. Basically what it is, it goes back to the life cycle. So having the ability to track how a lead is moving through your system is really critical to understand the time it takes for interest to translate then into opportunities and or sales. So when a lead comes in, there should be a status set for that person based on whatever activity they did. And then as they engage more with your content, then it should update that status accordingly and move through the funnel. And why this matters is because you can then actually track the responsiveness that your teams have related to your inbound funnel. And so the ability to know somebody filled out a form on day one, we followed up with them on day one in X amount of time, and then demo was scheduled for 3 days after that, et cetera. You can actually see how fast people are moving through your upper level funnel, your top level funnel, and then how long does it take that interest to then translate into closed won sales. And understanding all of those thresholds are really key to helping you double down on things that might be working well for you or not. And it allows you to understand the response rate that your salespeople have. And so if your SLA, for example, your service level agreement that you've posted out to your website is that all contact forms will be followed up with within 24 hours, and then you look at the data and the data is showing that it's really a 48-hour turnaround time, you kind of have two options. One is you change your SLA on your website so the prospect or the person filling out that form's expectations are accurate, and or you then talk to your sales team and understand why they're not following up quick. And potentially it is your systems are taking too long to route, or they're routing things wrong, or there's some sort of holdup or delay between your systems. So looking at your data will actually then inform how records are moving through your system. So coming back to the responsive aspect of it, having the ability to know when was a record actually followed up with is really important to then fine tune the structure with which you route things. Maybe you need to ask better questions on the front end. Maybe your enrichment solution isn't firing at the right time to give you the data you need to route it in the appropriate manner. And so all of these things are indicators that you could tweak to then make sure that those leads move through the system a little bit faster and a little bit more efficiently. It also allows you to work backwards and do some forecasting related to the goals that you have as an organization. So if you're needing to generate X amount of pipeline, knowing your conversion number from lead to opportunity will help you understand how many leads do we actually need to bring in. But then if you also understand how long does it take for somebody to move through our lead funnel, it'll allow you to know if we do an event today, that's actually going to impact revenue in a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever that time frame is. So the routing and responsiveness and the ability to track these things at a granular level is really, really key to ensuring your marketing efforts align with your sales goals, because both teams really need to be working in lockstep to make sure that your appropriate expectations, marketing is creating enough demand, sales is having enough conversations, and then closed won revenue is being realized. And so another good way to actually track your routing and your responsiveness is actually in a real-time dashboard. A lot of teams pull, I call them point in time reports. So they look at, here's demand, here's volume, here's what's happening today or related to a specific event, but that doesn't give you your ongoing demand and your funnel activities, which is really important to understand, again, that impact that your marketing activities are having. So having a real-time demand funnel is key for both sales and marketing to understand what's happening within the systems, but then it's also allows both teams to hold each other accountable for the SLAs that have been set. So again, back to my example with the contact us form, if the website says 24 hours and your data is saying that sales isn't following up within 24 hours, your marketing rep or your operations person can then know that and identify ways to modify that behavior. And it also allows some level of gamification. I've worked with organizations in the past where the SLA on following up with leads was within 15 minutes. And there was a leaderboard that we created for sales that actually showed the reps. And there was a red line, and everybody who was 15 minutes and below was above the red line. And then everybody who was 15 minutes or greater was below the red line. And salespeople held each other accountable. It was a conversation within their own sales meetings that they would talk about how they were following up, how they set up their notifications, how they organize their inboxes, all of those things. And it's all growth and learning opportunities for everybody. But it also, again, just, it makes it a little bit fun, and it's not a mundane type report. It's a report that you can you can run spiffs off of. If the sales leadership is really wanting the response time to be held to a certain standard, you can create a spiff based on it, or maybe a bonus based off it, to make sure that people are actually adhering to the behavior that you want, especially when you first introduce it, because behavior modification can be difficult. And so when it's a top down, side to side type visibility, making it kind of fun helps people buy in, and it helps people have the encouragement, more or less, to actually do the new behavior versus staying with their old habits. So to recap, for lead routing, it's absolutely essential to identify your user paths is number one. So your user paths are, when somebody does X behavior, what do I want to happen? And if I don't have complete information, what else is going to happen? So perfect world, I have all the information I need. Where is it going? If I don't have all the information I need, how are we handling that so it doesn't get dropped? Because whatever action it is, like a demo request, those you don't want slipping through the cracks. One not great example, but recently David and I were talking to a client, and as we were working through their data, they had a demo request that was actually a friend of David's, and the person filled out the demo request form and they were not followed up with for 3 weeks. And the SLA on the website was 24 hours. And so there was a massive disconnect between the filling out the form and then the ability to actually get somebody to talk to them. Like when somebody raises their hand and says, I would like to speak with you, please schedule a meeting with me, it really needs to be as seamless as possible. And that responsiveness is absolutely critical to potential revenue. So defining your key moments and key behaviors that a person will take, and then what happens with that lead, will help define what your routing strategy is going to be. And then based off of your organization's sales structure, are they territory based? Are they enterprise, mid-market, small business categorized? Like, how is sales structured, and how do I need to get these marketing leads over to sales? So that's number one. Number two would then be create mechanisms to actually track this activity and the behavior and the time it takes to move through the funnel. So the time it takes from when they become a known name to when the first contact is made to when the first meeting is scheduled, like those are critical conversion points that every organization really needs to track. And then on the third level, really try and create real-time dashboards or visibility into how the funnel is operating. So what is the demand? How responsive are we? And maybe it can be like a temperature gauge of, here's perfect, here's not so perfect, this is about where we are, because it'll fluctuate. Every day it fluctuates, but it also allows you to tweak and fine tune your systems to ensure that the critical leads are not getting dropped. And so create a fun way of tracking and having full visibility, and ensure that both sales and marketing understand what it is that you're tracking, why it's important to them, like what's in it for them is really important. And then also give them a way to give you feedback. In a lot of the managed services that my team handles, we always create a feedback mechanism. And having that is really crucial to, again, fine-tuning, scaling, and growing any of your systems. And so allowing them the capability of giving you feedback. I'm getting too many emails. The emails don't contain what I need, or maybe a Slack message is better, or just ping me in Salesforce. Like, meeting the salesperson in the platform that makes the most sense for them will also allow them to be more streamlined in their behavior. And then they'll be more readily willing to adopt any modifications that you may have in how they need to work and how they need to be responsive to these leads. So those are the three things. Define what your key moments are, and then how they need to move through the system, and then create a way to document and track all of those measurements and your key conversion points. And then really work with your sales team to make sure that they understand the behavior and the why it's really important to them, and how it can actually impact their revenue, their pipeline, their forecast numbers. And so that's our conversation for today, was about routing and responsiveness. And again, I encourage all of you to join us in the forum. It's norgroup.com/forum. If you would like to know more about the RevOps practice here at the NOR Group and the work that my team does, please visit our website, norgroup.com/RevOps. And we look forward to having another episode next week of Rev Up and diving into another topic that is really crucial to all organizations and their operations efficiency. So thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time.